Welcome to the Tintin podcast, where we explore the adventures of Tintin, one story at a time. Whether you're a long-time fan of the books or you need just discovering the world of the Border Porter, this is the place for you. We'll be taking a deep dive into Hergé's iconic series, unpacking the stories, art, historical context, and everything else that makes Tintin a global phenomenon. Each episode will explore one of Tintin's adventures in detail, with plenty of trivia scattered right through. I'm Varun, and today we're diving into one of Tintin's most haunting mysteries, featuring ancient curses, shattered minds, and a creeping sense of doom in the 7 crystal balls. We're kind of at the midpoint of the series, so it's only fair that we have a bit of the old and the new. Join me today are Adil and Guillermo.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Alongside them are Jesse from America, an independent journalist who's written multiple pieces on Tintin.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here.
And we also welcome Rohit from India, an airline pilot who's been a diehard fan of Tintin and all things Hergé for the better part of 25 years.
Hi, everyone.
And it's also fair to tell our listeners that Rohit has been due to record a pod with us for a long time, and you're finally here. Not a bad debut to make either, at least from your notes here. I gather that this album ranks pretty highly in your collection.
It's my favorite one. It's the first one I read, and it's my favorite one. For me, it was the supernatural and occult angle, which was a mystery in the real sense of the word. And, it's the first time that Hergé dabbled with it. And I think he did justice to it because the narrative and the pacing is very crisp. And he leaves the readers with, sense of bewilderment and dread after introducing them to not just the wonders of the Mayan civilization, but also their mysterious powers. So it made me very curious, the first time that I read it. And that's my rating for it.
Long time between pods to you, Adil. You've been with us for the action in Tintin in America and the exploration in the Black Island, and now you're here for a dose of fantasy. Do you like what you see?
Well, I'm not a fan of it going supernatural, to be honest, but I like the way the book is written. It's quite nice, very crisp. And the mystery of the South Americas obviously is very intriguing. But personally, I always like the realism of Tintin, despite the fact that he refuses to die. But apart from that, I guess not a fan of being, very supernaturally in this one.
What about you, Jesse?
I'd literally agree with both of them. I think somehow they're both absolutely correct. As much as I love the realism of Tintin, I think this story doesn't go too far into like the idea of like overly creepy. It's not like on the cover, it's like vampires or werewolves. I think it's just enough creepy and eerie that it still feels somewhat realistic.
Not the first time Hergé has looped in a collaborator, Edgar P. Jacobs, on this occasion. In fact, Guillermo, he was the inspiration behind the idea of the crystal balls itself and the change in flavor of the art from previous adventures, such as The Shooting Star, which was your last appearance. Do you like this change of scene?
I really like this style. I think this is the apex of Hergé works. I think Jacobs brought Hergé to its A game, and he took Hergé to a leap from his previous style, most cartoonish style, more inspired by Disney and McManus and comic styles from there, and actually took him to the Ligne Claire style, and really into the lush backgrounds, the very detailed backgrounds, the very detailed settings, which is actually sort of a contrast with the cover. The cover is actually very sparse, in contrast with other covers. So I think Jacobs is definitely the most important collaborator of Hergé, artistically at least.
So then, Rohit, would you go out on a limb and call it the 7 crystal balls by Hergé and Jacobs then?
No, for me, it's through and through, not Hergé and Jacobs, because their contribution was significant. It was important, no doubt about that. But this is Hergé's baby, and it's only his name that should be there.
Fair enough. Kicking off the story, one of my favorite parts comes rather early on at that variety show. But was a certain sea captain a little out of place there, Adil?
Well, there's definitely a lot of change in Haddock as a character in this book. I think he's trying to be part of the gentry, I suppose. The way he dresses and the kind of lifestyle that's shown around, including small bits, like the monocle he's trying to put on, keeps on losing it. So I think after getting Marlinspike Hall, You see this change that he's trying to bring about in the way I think he's supposed to be perceived by the world. Not that he's enjoying it. He still wants to be the whiskey in one hand and swearing at people, Captain Haddock. But I guess because he's a lot of a manner now, I get, the way he expects the world to perceive him, I suppose.
I think actually Hergé is mocking Haddock. It's mocking the pretense of the nouveau riche and trying to bring him back to its character roots. Like, you may be rich, he might be in this new setting, but he's not a gentleman. He's a sort of ridiculous gentleman. He falls down off his horse. He's always losing his monocles. He's not comfortable in his tweed and country clothes. And well, he wants to go off an adventure. And whether Haddock wants to retire, he really is not comfortable on those clothes. And actually, it's part of all the setting of the interwar years, the war years in occupied Belgium, which I think is rather impoverished and oppressive. And I think that's part of the setting of this situation. In any case, it's very funny. It's just very funny.
Did someone count the amount of times he lost it throughout the book?
The monocle, 6, isn't it?
It's a 6, is it? Okay, so I thought it was 5. Okay, interesting. 6.
I counted 6, but my math is nearly always wrong though. Also, the show Bianca Castafiore and General Alcazar, both making brief, seemingly random appearances. Did they really need to be there?
I think Bianca could be needlessly inserted because you see the kind of character she is. She's got like very opulent shows otherwise. This seemed more like a local fair that which they visit. It's not something that suits her personality. But I think Alcazar's character was quite pertinent to the story because he's from South America and he has the assistant who's then linked with the story that you'll eventually come to know. Towards the end of the book, of course, you get a hint that he's linked to it. So I think Alcazar does play a pivotal role towards the end when you realize the link that gets him to.
Rohit?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. With that General Alcazar, I think he was, it makes sense for him to be there. But Bianca Castafiore, not so much, because when you see General Alcazar, like I said, he appears again in later books, and this builds his character arc as a deposed dictator. And what he did, he spent some years out in the wilderness trying to regain his status, his power, and everything. So yeah, General Alcazar makes a lot of sense.
Especially as a kid reading this, it just made the world so connected, and it was like, even if I'm not a big fan of Bianca, I've never been a fan of character. As a kid, being like, oh, I know these characters from previous stories, it just made the world feel so much more lived in.
I mean, in general, the setting of the opera theater turned vaudeville variety theater shows something about the timing of the album, of the series, because the story is set in occupied Belgium. Of course, that's not mentioned, that is not even alluded to. But the fact that these artists, several artists there are people who are falling on hard times. Bianca Castafiore is previously set as a star from King Ottokar Scepter. She's a star. She plays two kings and courts and all that. She's a Milanese opera singer, and now she's in this variety act, playing her greatest hits. And that's sort of course, it's played for laughs. Snowy sings with her. That's very funny and sort of ridiculous. But everyone there is sort of a second act and a sort of fallen idol in a way. Alcazar is, of course, no one in the audience knows that Alcazar was former general chief of state, dictator of San Theodoros. He's just the magnificent so and so, and he's in this very ridiculous getup. But of course, he's pivotal to the story, as Adil mentioned. He helps our heroes find out about the emigre circles of South American, clans that are moving around in this mystery. So it's a very, very important link.
On the other side of things, there's no real villain in this one until much later. Do you miss the clear-cut antagonist figure, Guillermo, or does the plot keep you hooked anyway?
No, the dread of the mystery comes from the beginning. Something odd is happening since Miss Jamila's appearance on the music hall. Something dreadful is happening all around. People are just falling to this secret ailment, and they are just connected. The Sanders-Hardiman expedition, it's cursed, so to speak. So there's that sense of dread and something behind that dread. Either something malevolent and supernatural, or actual mobsters, gangsters, kidnappers around us. It fills you. And I really, not having an actual villain, but rather a mystery, was very, very intriguing. It was like a novel.
And some neat artwork to go along with it, Jesse.
Yeah, I agree. Even in the beginning with the show, just seeing each member of the audience, different things like that. Just think it's a really well-drawn book in general. The arc's gorgeous. I would say if this was coming in, we clearly have this come people's first Tintin book, it would be a really nice introduction because you just see such different kind of characters, different coloring. You know what I mean? It worked very well.
Yeah, I think I would say that he has pulled it off because of the artwork having gone up a notch in this one. There is a very because they've done a lot of meticulous research for this book when it comes to the Mayan civilization, their jewelry, their art, even the mummy itself. It was drawn from real life examples, and they really did a very good job with that. And I think that's why they managed to pull it off. That sense of intrigue and curiosity that it managed to generate throughout the book, I think it was because of the artwork itself. Even Professor Tarragon's house itself, I think, it was a Nazi headquarter. And these two, Hergé and P. Edgar Jacob, they actually realized it later. They had sketched the house, and then they were just about to go, and these Nazi officers came, and they just about missed them. Otherwise, they would have been in deep trouble. So they took a lot of real life examples, and I think that's what reflects in the artwork.
You brought up Professor Tarragon. He does bring a certain energy to the story, doesn't he, Adhiya?
I think it's a very rare character added by Hergé. He's like a very sorted character, very rare, a very rare specimen in the Tintin universe. As in, he is brilliant yet wealthy, and he's very sorted. He's got his feet on the ground. He's not insane, and he exudes some sort of calm strength.
I dare say a combination of Tintin, Haddock, and calculus rolled into one.
Yeah, pretty much. That's very rare because he has something of calculus which is otherwise missing in calculus, and same with life.
Actually, I think Professor Tarragon is one of my favorite characters. My favorite side character, definitely, and one of my favorite characters overall. I'm not because I just sort of look like him somehow, but also because it's. I find it intriguing the way his friendship with Professor Calculus, because Professor Calculus seems that like this absent-minded. He's the absent-minded professor par excellence, but Tarragon is so grounded, and the fact that they are friends and they're not coming from the same fields. He's in sort of a general scientist, but most of a physicist and engineers of sorts, and Tarragon is more of a biologist and anthropologist. But the fact that they are from academia, that they met at university, it always intrigued me, and I think it would have been nice to have that sometime in playing up in Hergé's history. It's like a missing opportunity with Captain Chester and Haddock, something I could have worked on. And actually, as Adil mentioned, he's very grounded. He's the straightest of straight men in this universe. He's very charismatic. He's very authoritative. He has gravitas, but also he has sort of bonhomie that helps. And then I just fascinated by the possibilities, and I really like him. I use it as an avatar sometimes in social media.
I'd have liked to see him again too, but he doesn't turn up again, does he?
No, he didn't. He didn't even got a mention. No, not even in those cameo mentions like a telegram or a call or anything.
Jesse, Tintin is never far away from South America, is he? The broken ear up front, the pictures at the end, and this duo neatly in the middle. What gives?
I think it's just, your ancient history and so many different ways you could have, gone with it. I mean, if you look at like even the adventure stories of the 1930s or 40s, your Alan Quartermain and stuff like that, a lot of that stuff kind of focused on, South America as well. So I just think because of the ancient history and so much direction you go with it and the unexplored, that was probably a perfect setting for him to be in.
Rohit, as an airline pilot, have you ever visited South America?
Unfortunately, no, not yet. Peru is high up on my list in that regard because thanks to Tintin. And this was the first book which gave me an insight into that world and the Mayan civilization and Machu Picchu and everything. So, yeah, Peru is somewhere there on my list, and I will probably go there someday.
You'll be in the next spot too when we head there proper, Guillermo. But in the meantime, how well did Hergé represent the elements from your continent in this story?
Yes, in a very realistic manner. I mean, the stereotypical take is in the shooting in the broken ear, but here is actually taken sort of documentary style and more anthropologically. And it has to be said, even for us in South America, the Incas and the ancient civilizations, the Maya and the Aztecs and so on, are sort of also exotic for us because we're just so far removed. Like perhaps the ancient Celts and ancient civilizations of Europe or ancient civilization everywhere are two modern societies. And because of course South America is not an indigenous continent. I mean, we are a mixed race society, so they're still very exotic to us. And in that regard, and it's also split between Eastern South America and Western South America, the Andean South America and the more jungle Atlantic South America. And that split shows in here. South America, San Theodoros in the broken ear is more from Eastern South America. Western South America is more the Andes, Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and so on. And that's when this will be settled. It's very, very exotic and very, very interesting. And they're very with great respect, with an exception. The getup that Alcázar, the General Alcázar, has as Ramon Zárate as the knife throwing Ramon Zárate in the variety theater. Ramon Zárate is a novel, sort of old novel from Venezuela, actually. It's a regular surname, but the actual getup, the mariachi Mexican sort of getup, it's very stereotypical and not at all realistic. I mean, no one wears that. It's sort of the like music bands wear that in Latin America and in Mexico. So it's completely inappropriate and much more relevant to a sort of variety theater, and it shows how low on his doldrums is General Alcázar.
Not in the doldrums is Adil, who's got a big bag of Easter eggs for us. Let's hear them.
Few things that I came across. One was cameos of fellow comic strip writers. So E.P. Jacobs is there on page 16, who's collaborated with him on this book. We have Jacques as well. I think he's collaborated on 2 books prior to this. Yeah, so he's on page 57 in the second frame. He's featured. He's standing behind Alcazar. Oh, he's there as well. Another interesting thing I came across was the front page. This is not the cover, but the front page, which now has Haddock with the prop on his head, was actually the mummy in the previous edition. But the publisher requested it to be changed because it was too frightening for younger readers. So it was evolved, and then Haddock was put in with the prop on his head. So that was something that I found quite interesting. I think there was there's a few bloopers. I don't know if you call it bloopers or maybe it was not taken into consideration. But there's an extra knife on Chiquito's head on page 10. So it's when he starts throwing knives at him. The last frame, which features Chiquito, there's an extra knife on his head on top. There's another thing. I think page 22. It's a postman who comes and in the third frame where the postman is featured, his shoe color changes from black to brown. So there were a few other things as well. I think the dead birds which are there, they also shift in the case. I think on the last frame. This is on page 22. The rainbows. Yeah, this was the first one actually that I came across. On page 54, the rainbow colors are upside. But I think as a child, it really didn't bother.
Gotta say, even as an adult, I never tend to notice these things. But now that you've mentioned them, I'll flip the pages and check them out. How about you, Gamer? Was it a page turner for you too? More pertinently, did you find yourself itching to dive into the Prison of the Sun after that final page?
No, I was very interested in that regard because I knew there was a Prisoners of the Sun and I knew that was in Peru. So I was interested in that book, but I got this one first and I didn't know this was the prequel to that. So when I got this album from the bookshop and it was not cheap, but when I was a kid, it was like 3 months of my allowance. They were very, very expensive books. And I was in the 6th grade. Remember vividly. And, well, I was beyond frustrated that I had to wait to go to Peru with the characters because I didn't know it was a mystery. It was a very intriguing thing, and the cover doesn't show anything on that sense. The cover shows the lightning and the library, but doesn't show it's going to go either way, which you could sort of tell on other two-parters, of course. So yes, I was beyond frustrated, and I think I had to wait for 4 months or something to amass the capital to go to the bookshop and get my Prisoners of the Sun.
How about you, Jesse?
I was trained. I literally I went through all the stories again a couple months ago to read them all, and usually I'll read a story over a couple of days, and then when I finish it up, I'll go to bed. And in this case, I finished the 7 Crypto Ball building. Nah, I'm starting tonight. Just because I think that's the incredible thing about the story. It does such a great job of the mystery. It leads right into the follow-up story perfectly.
Was up for some fan questions. Let's roll. Rohit, Hergé originally planned this as a standalone and then chose to extend it. Can you spot the moment where you think he decided this needed a sequel?
I think for me, it would be the kidnapping of Calculus, because it happens towards the end of the storyline, and there isn't much time to really make something out of it and bring that arc to an end. So I feel that's where he decided, okay, let me make this into a second book. And also, I think he wanted to show the splendors of the Mayan civilization and South America and everything, and which he brilliantly did in Prisoners of the Sun. So I think that's the point where he decided, okay, this has to be split into 2 books.
Do you agree with that, Adil?
Yeah, pretty much so. I think when the scene is there with that, the ball of energy that comes in through the chimney, first of all, I realized, oh my God, we're going supernatural. And I just checked the amount of pages that were remaining. I had an idea that this book is not going to get over this one, and it's going to be a follow-up. So yeah, it was about then when I realized, okay, there's going to be another one.
Guillermo, somebody asked if this Tintin book unfolds over the shortest period of time, that is just a few days.
As far as I can recall, yes. I mean, I hadn't paid attention to that detail until the question was brought up. But yes, I think only the Calculus Affair and Flight 714 are just this short-lived adventures. With the frantic the pace is always frantic.
Yeah, even I think, I'm not very sure if the other stories are, shorter than this or not. But I think this seems like one of the shortest ones. And yeah, like Guillermo pointed out, probably Flight 714 as well.
And Jesse, as somebody who didn't read these in order, they would like to know why, at the beginning of the story, does Tintin live in his own house and not Marlinspike Hall, which already houses Calculus and the captain?
I think after last story, it was just my old fan theory. Calculus and Haddock had the odd couple real relationship going on. Decided they were perfect roommates, and at that point, Tintin had already been living on his own for years. And this is a story where he decided, you know what, let me move into this spot and join the plan of the house. I think it's just because I mean, people forget, but Haddock was introduced right afterwards, Catholic, and then, they became primary characters. Prior to that, there was Tintin on his own for so many adventures. And I think that was kind of the idea of having it separated from the two other characters.
Guillermo, what's your theory?
As far as I can tell, he is on his own address in Land of Black Gold, but of course that's a very weird publication history. We wouldn't see when he comes back to Belgium after prisoner, so we don't know. And in the Moon Saga, he's just heading to see what happens to. He's already visiting Haddock as well. So as far as I know, only in the Calculus affair he's actually living in Mountains by Gold.
And your final thoughts, and we'd love to know how many crystal balls for the 7 crystal balls.
I think it's a beautiful drawn story, the lush and detailed backgrounds, full of details, full of aspects. Professor Tarragon's library alone, it's a work of art. And the whole scene at his house, the ambience, the dread of the storm is always memorable in my mind. But it's the mystery, the ongoing mystery from the first vignette, from the first notice of the expedition to the end, holds the story together and announces the great story that's to come. I think our heroes are in top form, in much so well defined in this story than almost before. Especially the underrated Snowy. Snowy saves the day once more, and even with the cliffhanger, I think the story all holds up on its own. So I think 6 crystal balls out of 7.
And that's a wrap on our journey through the 7 crystal balls. From ominous curses to eerie comas, this book took Tintin into darker territory, setting up one of the more gripping cliffhangers in the series. Next up, we follow Tintin and Haddock into the heart of the Andes and Prisoners of the Sun, as they race to save Professor Calculus and uncover the secrets of an ancient civilization. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as we continue our journey with the Tintin podcast.